using formatting and functions in Excel to review spreadsheet data. So, just at a high level, I wanted to note some of the risks of Excel and, what can go wrong and what are we looking for, when we audit Excel spreadsheets. What's kind of like the audit objectives that you might want to look for. I think in general, Excel can be dangerous. As I said, it is a wonderful free platform in that you could build whatever you'd like to build in it. The problem with that is that it's a wonderful free platform that allows you to build whatever you want, and people who especially are over comfortable with it may think, oh, I know how to do VLOOKUP and subtotal and pivot table, and it's going to work, no problem, when there really isn't a whole lot of security or testing of what's happening, and there's no real log. If you look at like ACL and IDEA as products, they tend to log everything that's happening in your development process, whereas here, you push the refresh button and everything refreshes. So there really is no development process that anyone follows unless they're really good and they document what they did and show how they tested it and QA'd it and all that stuff. But very few people ever take that step with Excel. There's not a whole lot of built-in controls. You can add a few, but it's not really built in. And the hidden spreadsheets, the hidden links, the external links, you move one file out of place and you're in a mess, right? You're in a pickle pretty quickly. So just wanted to kind of note some of the reasons why. And this was just a couple of items, but I'm going to show you a website that's way better. This is NASA fiscal year 1999, misstated 644 million due in part to misrepresentation in their budgetary information, and it was ad hoc and it was using Excel. And again, this is one example. Another example here is CFX. The adjustments are done on an Excel spreadsheet, and they're adjusted backwards to the management accounts that back to the equation system. So basically, we start with Excel that is quote-unquote accurate, and then we work backwards to the actual accounting system, and it was a bit of a fraud that was identified using these tools, and or using some process, I'm sorry, but with that said, Excel gave the opportunity to do this because it's so open, no one's really checking it, and it's hard to really find all those errors within it. So I'm just kind of coming upon this website, usprig.org, and let's kind of go over quickly here to their website because I just think it's so useful. These spreadsheet stories are from the horror stories of Excel Usprig, and there's a lot here, but continuing down here, they kind of note it. They have the source. You could link to the source. Various things. The London Olympics as an example, which just came up. Interest calculations, etc. And I mean, it's almost like if you ever had to go to a board or audit committee presentation and talk about why you need to audit Excel spreadsheets, you could probably just spend about 10 minutes and go through this laundry list of horror stories, find a couple that meet your need, and then pick them out and use them. In addition to the horror stories, I've not gone through the full website, but I do know, and if you're ever interested, let's take a look. This is in 2013, on the 4th or 5th of July, 2013. You can go to the University of Greenwich, which, by the way, for what it's, if anyone cares, whenever you see things like GMT time, so GMT is where the meridian line falls on the Earth, and it falls in Greenwich, London, and that's why the G is from Greenwich, so it's like Greenwich Mean Time. And I'm in New York, so I'm about 5 hours behind Greenwich Mean Time, or that timeline. And anyway, that's where it is. It's a nice place to visit if you're ever up there. It's a really pretty campus, but also you can stand on the Meridian line if you'd like, which everyone does. But some of the presentations that they have from here are from various noted people. I know Patrick O'Byrne is I believe the head of Usbrig right now. Used to be, might not be now, but used to be, and a few other people. But really into this stuff. If you haven't a real interest in this, I would definitely consider going to Usbrig. There's lots of quotable quotes, there's press websites, there's hour talks and presentations, which, because it's been an annual thing forever and ever, you can learn so much from going to this website. And I wanted to spend a lot of time on this because, I'm apologetically saying, I wish I spent more time going through this website, taking a look at some of their best practices. I know Patrick O'Byrne has a book on best practices that I have and I've read, so I kind of felt like I did enough, but there's just so much in here that you could take a look at. Spreadsheet auditing for free, and how do you know your spreadsheet's right, and these are from folks that obviously spent a lot of time auditing Excel spreadsheets. So anyway, back to the presentation, but did want to show that to you because I think, hopefully you can take what you learned today and go well beyond that into a lot of other discussion. Okay, so before I get into Excel, though, and start showing you lots of detailed examples, I wanted to show you, a lot of people don't know this, and we'll do a few different examples of this, but one thing I was looking for in a general ledger once, they had like a general ledger mapping table, and just recently working on this, but I found it odd that the same account number was showing up on this mapping table, and I said, shouldn't it only show up once? That account summary, it was a trial balance, I'm sorry, so account should only really show up once in that trial balance. So I was able to just highlight the field, do a conditional format, which we'll show you how to do, and Excel will just show you all of the duplicate values very, very quickly. So that's, some of the things I just want to show you with conditional formatting and filtering. It's amazing, what you can do with just that. Other things we can talk about is, I haven't gotten too much into this, but I want to show you some of the things that you can do where you can actually select data bars. So using conditional formatting, you can set data bars for each data point and look at kind of the grade of that color, and very similar to that, you can actually set these icon sets, and if it's over this value, put a green arrow upwards. If it's under this value, put a red arrow downwards. And these are all these rules that you set up in the conditional formatting. Okay, so just wanted to quickly go through the duplicates and the graphing of information from a data bar point of view, and taking a look at the variety of features that you can use to kind of audit or look at the numbers. If we did get a spreadsheet like this, just an invoice type spreadsheet, it's, I believe, sales invoices, one of the things that you might want to take a look at, and I'll just kind of fudge one here, and let me just pop one of these down here to say this is invoice 2001 duplicating itself. I can highlight the invoice column and say, do we have any duplicates? You don't need active data just yet. We can go to conditional formatting, and I'm using Excel 2010 on this machine. Some of you may be using 2007. It isn't that much different, so I do want to note that. There are little differences in how this works, but it's not too much different. We do have this highlight cells rules, and you can do greater than, less than, between, text that contains, so it might be useful as well, a date occurring, and you can set a range of dates, and then that would be a way of highlighting. You might also just want to filter, that is a way to get a lot of this done, so we'll talk about that. But I always love this duplicate value one, which I don't believe you can data filter on, and we'll test that theory, but I don't think you can. So we'll click duplicate values, and we'll say we want to look at stuff that's light red. We could change this to whatever we'd like. Green fill with dark green text, or yellow fill with dark yellow text. Let's do that. Why not? And we'll hit OK. So actually, there were a couple in here already. And there's a couple of ways now. If you said, let me look at all my duplicates, one way, it's not the best. I can select this zooming button over on the right-hand side and just kind of bring that down, to 10%, which is the lowest, and just kind of, quickly scroll down the list here and look for the yellows, and we had a couple up above there, so that was easy to see, and you could highlight further down and look for any yellow information. That's one way out of that scenario. The other one, just kind of bring that back to fold, is you can highlight that first column of data and say data filter, and now that I have that filter placed on there, we can select the invoice number field, and just to test my theory, I don't think I can select duplicate values. I might be able, let me just look here, even in the custom filter, I'm just checking, is there a way to say, yep, so there's no real duplicate value option. However, an easy way to do is if I've set my conditional format, I can actually sort and filter by color now. So I can filter, we can do sort by color or filter by color and say, yeah, let's do that one. Takes a little while, but these are the 4 items, as we noted before, that have a duplication in that field. So, one way of just auditing the spreadsheet and saying, do I have duplicate items in my set would be just to do what we just walked through with the conditional formatting and the filtering. I can clear that filter by clicking the clear button up here and back to the original spreadsheet. We have a variety of options here. I mean, we might want to take a look at salespeople, and you could use the filter option here. I mean, I think most of you are pretty competent with the filter option of Excel, but if not, you can sort from smallest to largest, largest to smallest by color, as we talked about. You could set number filters, things like above average, below average. What is the average? We'll talk about that in a second, but again, these are things that you can easily kind of do with your data itself. And top 10 as well. I mean, this is kind of interesting. I'll just, we'll say the top 10 items. So it's sorting it from high to low, and then putting the salesperson number 99, 27, 26, and so on and so forth through the ending there. So again, kind of an interesting little way of looking at it. Again, just click that clear button up above just to get rid of that. Okay, so just wanted to take a look here. Yeah, so some of the other things that we'll talk about a little bit later, but I may as well talk about now while we're here, is you probably noticed as how did we get to that above average? Like, how does Excel know what the average is? If you highlight a column of data, it doesn't always occur. You have to kind of set it, but down below here, you'll notice on my spreadsheet, I have average. Sorry about that. Hold on. I have average, highlighting that. We have average, count, and the sum. If I right-click this bottom bar of Excel, I'm able to do quite a bit of things. We could set the maximum, the minimum, I guess numerical count. Not really sure. Oh, okay, maybe the numerical count is how many of them have numbers in it versus the total count. It's kind of interesting, but I'll take that off for now. And again, just by clicking off of that, you can start to see the min, the max, the average, the sum, and the count. And again, just in getting a very quick statistical view of that data, now that we're looking at number data instead of duplications of invoice number, looking at this number data, you can actually get a sense of how big and small each of the items are in the actual spreadsheet. Now, to that end, and I'll just kind of quickly show you one more thing back to our slides that we talked about. We had data bars as well as icon sets, and so I showed you a few ways of like looking at numbers. I mean, you could highlight it and look at the sum, the max, the min, the count. You could even filter in the number filters and say less than, greater than, top 10, below average, above average. I'll test the theory here, above average items. Again, it adjusts what's down here than what we had before, but I think it was around 500 and something was the average. And notice here everything is above, 500 and something. Let's just go back here. Okay. But one other thing that I wanted to show you is in conditional formatting, you can set data bars, and you could do more of like a gradient fill, a solid fill. We'll do a gradient so you could read the numbers a little bit better. And let's, I'll select the blue one. So items that, and then what I'll do, so you can kind of see the large blue, etc. I can then sort from largest to smallest, and you can see the largest item has the largest data bar. A middle item from 4090 is a little bit smaller, 3429, 2938, and as you go down this, you can almost it's almost like a cartoon, kind of watching how the data bar grows as the dollars change. And again, this might be useful to some. I mean, maybe we're taking it to an nth degree, but what you could do is kind of scroll it down to say 40%. It looks a little readable there, and just kind of look at, how many little ones do I have? How many big ones do I have in here? And you can almost quickly see, okay, maybe right around here, right around here or so, that's where everything starts to get big, and that's, at about cell 100 and, 90 or so out of the 5,000. So by using data bars, you can get there. Another thing that, as we highlight this, and just to show all the things, we had icon sets, and you could set this directional one, and the directional one will, again, be set, and I would say it kind of automatically does it, quite frankly, on more, I believe, of above average, close to that average, and below the average. But you can easily set things to, let me just clear rules from the entire spreadsheet. Let me just go back to this guy and bear with me, conditional formatting, icon sets. You can basically set more rules, and you can start to decide where things fall. So that's something where whatever you'd like to put in here, you can start to change. Anything greater than 67% make green. Okay, maybe I make that 50%. Anything 50 to 20%, and then I guess hopefully that'll recalculate when 20%. So now we've set it up where we have it at 50, greater than 50%, in that 20% range, and then things that are below, say, 20% of the total value. So hopefully that's helpful. I wanted to show you some of the sort of newer features of Excel and making things pretty and therefore able to look at. Being honest, I probably would just utilize highlighting the column, manually looking down here and saying, oh, my average is 534, sort it from largest to smallest. Here's my, the old way of doing it. And then just kind of scrolling down until I get to that 534 mark and saying, okay, these are all the above average items, anything above this item here. Useful functions that might be helpful for you, and I also find are a good kind of audit test of Excel. And what I'm finding there is that these are functions that I find auditors use quite a bit. Things like the absolute value of numbers, the lower, which basically will provide the lowercase item, the upper, which is the uppercase of that item, left and right, which would take the leftmost and rightmost characters, and that could be really useful if you're doing like a Benford's Law test or something, but it could be useful just in playing around with data and summarizing it. The mod function will look for round dollars, so if you're auditing and kind of looking for round dollars, we'll talk about that one. And then the weekday, so that provides you a day of the week. 1 is a Sunday and goes all the way through to 7 being the Saturday. So if you want to see when things were entered, that would be a way of aligning that as well. So again, the mod function is testing rounded items. So what I will do, let me get rid of this filter, which may confuse things. And I'll add some columns over here on the left-hand side. We'll just kind of add a few and show a few of these functions to you today. One of them, obviously, is the mod function. And the mod function takes a number. And I don't know if you do this a lot, but I tend to, if I put it a function and it gets me kind of close, I will hit the FX button, and it'll provide me with the entire description of what I'm supposed to put in here, which is always so useful to know what should I put in here. And with that said, I can put in, say, 1,000. So that would be my divisor. And maybe actually with this data here, I may even make it 100 because I just know my data, and there's not a whole lot that are rounded by 1,000 in here. Actually, I take that back. The number would actually be this cell here. So the number is that cell. And if I read this, it would tell me that, where do you want to do the division on. And notice what it's doing. It's taking 5590, dividing by 100. It's saying 55 times 100 is 5,500, with 90 as a remainder. So the mod of this will be 90. That's the remainder. Now what you can do is if you copy this all the way down the spreadsheet, and we'll call this, mod 100, is I can now filter on mod 100, and for some reason it's not coming up in my filter. Maybe it's just not calculating. Bear with me one second. Maybe we'll and just kind of look down at it, I guess, for argument's sake. I was hoping maybe what I'll do is I'll go the old-fashioned route just for a second to see if this works. But if I copy, maybe this is throwing it off too. Bear with me one second. I'm kind of curious. It's always good when you're live and try something and it doesn't work. Yep. So it was probably those 3 columns that was giving it a little bit of a snag. But what's interesting is I actually have no rounded items in here, which is really quite interesting. So let me create a rounded item by making that 5,500, and then down below here I'll make this 4,000. Okay. So by doing that, I actually created a mod over here of 0. And that means 5,500 divided by 100 equals the 0. Okay. So get rid of that filter. We'll just kind of add another column over here. And why don't we'll just do one of these, and we'll say, left of 4. This would be something I find where I'm kind of playing around with data in order to make it work. And what I would do is use the left function, and maybe I'll even use 2 of them here. We'll then even use the upper function. Excuse me. So just to convert that to uppercase, we'll put a comma of 4, and that would be 4 characters. And then that will turn commerce over here into COMM in an uppercase sort of fashion. I can also copy that down, and then that would give us a listing of each product's 4-character starting point. And a lot of times you need to do this in order to do pivot tabling and to summarize things. So I did want to show you how you can utilize functions and setting up your data. And and I guess as we continue through the types of things that we can work with here, I wanted to kind of show you in enforcing data validity. Notice here that this salesperson number is a 14 and an 18 and a 16. And what I find a lot of times is you get a lot of data that would be more something along these lines here. It's sort of mixed up data. And let me just highlight these few items here so you can see what I'm talking about. I don't know if people utilize VLOOKUPs a lot. I do find within companies there's a lot of VLOOKUPing, and VLOOKUPs would allow you to assign, based on this salesperson here, say a salesperson's name. So I think salespeople is over here as an option. And so let's say we wanted to align the name based on that field there. I'm kind of curious to see how it will work, but a lot of times what will happen, and not trying to make this a class about VLOOKUPing, but if I'm looking up that value within the salespeople items over here, and I would be looking at the entire set of names with the salespeople numbers, bear with me, we will set that up. Let me just kind of go to here. I'm going to hit F4 to ensure that those are set in stone. and I'm going to say I want to bring over the value in column 2 whenever I have a match, and then I type the word false down here as you have an option of true false. You want false so that it's a perfect match. Okay, so John Lydon works, Annie Stephen works, NA. And you're sitting there going, I have a 16, and I go over to salespeople and I have a 16, it's Nick Carter, but yet it doesn't seem to be carrying over into this data. So what happens is Excel, and it's showing a few different things here, by the way. Notice we have this little error icon showing up. So the error icon is showing up. What the error icon is saying for this field is that the number is stored as text, and therefore it looks like an error in Excel in relation to all the other cells. Now, if all of them are text, sometimes it doesn't come up, but I think almost all the time it will come up as a quote-unquote error to consider. So one of the things that you could do to convert this quickly is to highlight that column, and this is, well, there's a few different ways. We'll kind of take two different ways here to fix this problem. One way is to multiply this by a 1. That's one way of doing it, and when you bring that down, notice that creates a number. So that's a way that a lot of people do it. I'm more of a fan of using a tool like Active Data, and Active Data is something that you can get. We'll show you later. It's a 30-day license for free, and after that it's a couple $100, but it provides you a lot of tools in Excel for auditing. For duplicate testing, for summarizing, for stratifying, statistics, all that good stuff. But just right now I'm just going to look at converting cells, and this is where, again, imagine you're auditing a spreadsheet and you notice there's a lot of NAs in the, and every time, mind you, you're going to get NAs. A couple of things you could do. What I tend to do is I convert cells, and I'll say hard code every one of these cells to text. So even though it's a number, I'm not going to add up salespeople numbers anytime soon, so it really is more of a text field. So let me kind of turn that into text. I will take my chances and confirm that, and then everything is converted as a text. Now everything's NA. That's kind of weird, but because over here I need to do the same thing. So now what I'm doing is I'm using Active Data, cells to text, to force data integrity into the spreadsheet, and now magically they all work. So this is something that I did want to show. Of all of the options here in the converting, like remove all spaces and remove non-alphanumeric characters and all that stuff, add leading zeros. There's a lot of cool things that you can do to make things match up better, and hence the spreadsheet will work better. But you start to see how Excel can be dangerous, in that something that you were doing a lot of VLOOKUPing on or an if statement on can quickly kind of go awry in the data if you're not careful.